Noticing the feet and their contact with the floor. Feel the pressure on the bottoms of the feet. Nice, full, complete contact with the floor. So awareness at the feet and the interface between the feet and the ground. And slowly moving your awareness up through your body. Moving your awareness and perhaps even your breath from the feet slowly up through the body. That sensation of support at the bottom of the feet, that secure pressure and support, moving that up through the body. Releasing and opening along the way. Moving the feeling of your breath with that line of support, moving up through the body. One of the key aspects of working in this way, once we have some other support, once we have the ground, we're now literally physically feeling pressure on the bottoms of the feet. That's the support of the ground. That's the pushback of the ground. So in a very physical way, that's a huge part of what we do in Tai Chi, a huge part of the releasing and the opening. When we have a support that we can use and count on, we don't have to be holding. Everybody's holding in, holding up, holding to one degree or another, and quite universally, muscles, breath, emotions, everything. For most people, every sinew is in a state of holding, bracing, resisting, protecting. Eventually, through the practice of standing, our awareness develops, our ting develops. And so these subtle things like the ground pressure, the ground support, become bigger and bigger things, more and more real things. And if I now have another support, support I can use, consciously use, and use more and more, and consciously embrace, and replace that with the old way of supporting, feeling supported. I have a different support now, a new support that I can rely on and give more and more stuff over to. So now that I have this other support, things can let go, the muscles can release. And I'm working that support up through my body. Eventually, again, through developing awareness and intention, that support, you will be able to move up through your body and feel it as support. And so if I have support here, I don't have to be holding on or holding up. So the process from the bottom of the feet moving up, as to whatever degree you can, move that support up through the body. And eventually that's the support that you come to know and to rely on. And so it's a trigger to release. I can release, release, release as this moves up because I have something else supporting me. Eventually you'll be able to bring that higher and higher up through your body. And it becomes a real continuous process of release, releasing and opening. But it's really hard for us just to release and be open, especially hard to keep that. that when I have something else, something tangible that becomes tangible anyway, becomes more and more tangible. When I have something else I can rely on, something else I can feel, something else I can use, something else that is support, I can then afford to now release and release and release. And I can afford to physically and emotionally, I can afford to open because I have another, a new support. And as our ting or awareness gets clearer, sharper, it becomes more and more obvious, more and more palpable, more and more substantial through support. So if I have that support, I don't have to do this old stuff. And just take a moment just to really allow the spine to dangle along. Let the hips fall away. Lower back becomes virtually straight. It's longer. Feel your spine as it's often the imagery is a pearl necklace hanging with gravity. So space increases between the pearls. The imagery I sometimes use is a piece of laundry. It's still sopping wet. It's on the clothesline. So it just hangs naturally with gravity. It's got that weight to it that pulls it long. When it's dry, it kind of curls up and shrinks up, gets pinked up. But when it's got some wetness to it, it's pulled, naturally pulled under its own weight. So a long, wet garment hanging from the clothesline is fine, or indeed the entire body. And ensuring the knees are bent even a bit more, because we're going to do some hip circles, and bending the knees will protect the knees, and also bending the knees will pull the lower back long, flat, to protect the lower back. And starting very, very, very small hip circles, because we're doing this as a warm-up as well. We haven't really done any other warm-ups. So very, very small. Release the abdomen. And as it becomes comfortable, bigger circles. Once in a while, remind yourself of a weight underside or that sopping, hanging garment. Because of course, what can happen, doing something as simple as this, I'll exaggerate a little bit. I might start pretty good hanging out, hanging from that clothesline. I start doing a movement, popping in. That's gonna happen for sure, for sure. Just a matter of degree. So I have to remind myself of the hanginess, the weight underside. And that again, re-lengthens the back, re-straightens and lengthens the lower back. And let that movement propagate up through, higher up through the spine, not just the hips. So just letting that kind of let your whole body be relaxed. So the central gyroscopic movement actually starts to spread up and down through the body. So it's also working those knees and ankles, but it's also working up the spine. Even to the top of the head. And extra hanging out, re-emphasize hanging out to naturally bring you back to stillness. Breathe, releasing on the out breath. Send your mind the other way. Let your hips be swept up by that mental vector, starting very gentle and very small, ensuring the knees are bent to a good degree. And tailbones pointing down, right down to the floor. And you can intend larger circles. And then notice that central circular movement start to spread out, up and down, through the rest of the skeleton. So feeling it affect the upper spine, shoulders, vertebrae of the neck. As we get really luxurious with these hip circles, getting those knee joints moving, ankle joints, massaging the feet, pressure into the ground, just from hip circles. And again, accentuate hanging outness and enjoy the natural subsiding back to centered stillness. The weight is always settling. Release the abdomen and breathe. Again, lower back straight and flat. Alternating shoulder rolls. You let the arms go. And as you intend shoulder rolls to get bigger, notice it touches more and more of the skeleton. Eventually working all the way down to the hips, knees, ankles, and feet. And all the way up through the neck to the top of the head. Just through these gentle, luxurious shoulder circles. Massaging the internal organs. So a simple movement, articulating every joint in the body, addressing and touching every joint in the body. Active breathing, subsiding stillness. Send the intention the other way. Let that sweep up the body. Body swept up into movement. And notice all the joints. And really notice the spine really undulating and being mobilized. Hanging out, letting gravity take you back to vertical centered stillness. Releasing breath in the abdomen. Arms flow out in front, rounded, shoulders down. So if you're holding a big balloon, you're not holding up, you're reaching around the balloon, and the resting. Arms are resting, knees bent, lower back flat. A gentle turn, the hips stay center, hips don't move. Hips are in a bracket, can't move them. Just turning from the hips up. That's only as far as comfortable. Breathing in through the middle, breathing out as you turn comfortably. Hips are in a bracket, so just from the hips up. Arms are resting in this big circular shape. Weight underside through the arms. Okay, we're going to add to this a little bit. We turn, but we turn the palms outward. And we come back to the middle, palms towards you. Turn comfortably to the other side, palms turn facing outward. And back. And then drifting down. So this is breathing in, breathing out, turn the palms away, breathing in, coming back to the middle, breathing out, palms away from the other side, breathing in, back to center, breathing out. Go at your own pace. So breathing in, rising, shoulders stay down, elbows bent, breathing out, and then pause here for just a moment, breathing in, breathing out, slight pause at the end of the out breath, breathing in, breathing out. Going at a comfortable pace with your breath. And hands drifting down, hang out and breathe. Remember the drippingness of a sopping wet garment. Want to make sure that things are aligned. For example, arms and shoulders at the side. If I have that natural weightedness, the sopping garment, I want to make sure it's not pulling my arms here in front, aggravating this improper shape. I want the hanginess, the weightedness, the dripping in a proper placement. So this is pull down here, not pull down into a direction that's normally compromised shape. Most people have that shape. So straight down. And then backs of the fingers together in the center of the chest. Knees bent, lower back flat. Roll the elbows. Again, knees bent, release the abdomen. Explore a pleasant range of motion. Nice good breathing. Hang the spine. Check your breathing. Release the abdomen. Send your attention the other direction. Elbow circles the other way. Notice what you're doing for the spine. Keep the lower back long and flat. Belly released. Okay, slowly subsiding. Stillness. Hanging low and heavy. That means knees are bent a fair bit, lower back's flat. Just resting here. From the ribs, we're going to turn. So from here down, we're in a bracket. You can't move the hips. You can move from the ribs, only as far as comfortable. Breathe out as you turn. Breathe in as you come back to center. So enjoy exploring a gentle range of motion. Again, knees bent, lower back is straight and long. Shoulders pressed down. Turning from the ribs. Make sure your breathing is good, that you're not holding your breath at all. And part of that is making sure there's not growing tension. It's probably a new move for you. And whenever we're doing something new or we don't have a lot of control or mind-body connection in that part of the body, you tense. You tense up, you tighten. So go slow enough and mindful enough that you can keep releasing tension that will tend to accumulate. And back to center. Deep breaths. One hand at the base of the pelvic area, other hand at the navel. The bottom hand is just there to remind you to keep the hips still. So the hips don't move. You minimize it as much as possible. So that hand is there to kind of stabilize your hips, anchor them. The hand at the belly button, that's where we're going to turn from from here up. So this basically stays stable as much as possible. And from the belly button up, turn. Just from the belly button up and back. Breathing comfortably, or breathing out on the turn and breathe in as you come back to center. So just from the belly button up is the turn. The other side, relax. Notice the movement in the spine. Good, okay. And then we're going to slide this up. So the bottom hand is at the navel, and the top hand at the sternum. And so we're going to move from the belly button again. And so the hips don't move, just like before. This is a little bit more complex. There'll be two parts to the movement. We're going to turn from the belly button up, just like before. So turn from the belly button, start comfortable, and then from the sternum, from the second hand up, we turn a little further. And then bring the belly button back, and then bring the sternum back. So we're moving the spine in two segments. Everything here up, and then from here up a little further. So turning from the belly button as far as comfortable, and then from the sternum as far as comfortable. And then bring the belly button back, and then the sternum comes back to center. So that's a lot of control, a lot of awareness and control. So that's a lot of mental work. So from the belly button up, the entire spine from the belly button up turns, and then from the sternum up turns a bit more. Breathe, bring the belly button back, followed by the sternum. Belly button up turns to the other side, and the sternum up turns a bit more. Bring the belly button back, drags the sternum behind it. Eventually the sternum comes back as well. So the other way, the belly button up, then the sternum. And then bringing the belly button back, the sternum up is last to come, it's dragging, it's a bit stubborn. And when the belly button comes back to center, it's followed by the sternum. The other way. So when you come back with the belly button, sternum doesn't really come, just the belly button comes, and then the sternum up is dragged back, and the sternum is back in the center. This fluid breathing. Okay, and relaxing the arms down. Deep breath. And out. Okay, and turn this way so you can follow along with me the first few here. So I'm going to turn, look over my left shoulder, and my hands wrap around my body. So my right hand comes to my left shoulder, and my back of my left hand to my right hip. So they're wrapped around my body. So everything kind of goes in that direction. I look a little bit over behind me, over the left shoulder. And then coming to the middle, I bend my knees, I sink down, my arms open apart and go out to the lateral horizon. And then with a gentle rising up, I look over my right shoulder and wrap my arms around the other way. So that's my left palm coming to my right shoulder, and the back of my right hand going to my left hip. And then I sink down, the hands float out to the sides, and I rise up and I wrap the other way again. So I sink down the middle, arms flow out. I rise up and arms wrap around. I breathe out as I sink and the arms go out. Sorry, I breathe in as I sink. I breathe out as I rise, turn and look. Breathe in through the middle, arms flow out laterally. Breathe out as I rise and turn. Sink and breathe in. Rise, breathe out and turn. Notice a gentle turning of the spine. Well, serpent ascends the pillar, or dragon ascends the pillar. Breathing in, sinking, breathing out, rising, turning and wrapping. So notice the action with the spine. And relaxing the arms down. Feel the hanginess through the body. Release the abdomen. So the Qigong spinal bow, again, quick review, and then we'll practice it a little bit. Like the bicycle chain, link by link by link. And of course, in the beginning, it's 2 or 3 or 4 vertebrae at a time. But basically, starting from the top, I release first 2 or 3 vertebrae, just hang with gravity. So not a muscular dropping and pulling, no muscular action at all. You're just choosing to release it with gravity. Just like I choose to let my wrist go, as opposed to flexing forearm muscles or wrist muscles to have the hand go in the same position. I can just let gravity take it. The gravity take it, the gravity take it. So that's what we're doing vertebrae by vertebrae. So the rest of the spine that hasn't been gotten to yet is still vertical. And how far down you go depends on your flexibility. But eventually, theoretically, and ideally, eventually, you'd be going right down until you're touching the bottommost vertebrae. So it's very important to remind yourself to breathe the whole way, because there's a tendency to hold the breath, especially as you go deeper down. And also sinking into the hips a little bit here, bending the knees so that I'm not leaning forward, but the weight is sinking right down my legs. So here. And when you come up, it's 1 vertebrae at a time, theoretically. So the head does not come up. It's the last thing to come up because it's the last vertebrae. So try that once or twice on your own without the arms just hanging with gravity to help remind you of gravity working. And that was to save time. So you want to go a little bit slower than that. As I mentioned before, how slow you go, you can vary that. So you're developing your ting, developing your internal awareness, developing the mind-body connection. Eventually, you'll be able to consciously, willfully release 1 vertebrae at a time and build up 1 vertebrae at a time, very consciously, and be able to feel that. And check the breathing. Good. Yeah, so then it's vertebrae stacks up 1 at a time.
So as I come up, if I'm hanging right here, I bring the next vertebrae or two up, next two up, straight up, next one or two up, everything else hangs with gravity.
So again, with the arm position, it starts just like commencement. And then the left thumb goes into the right hand. You fold the fingers over the knuckles. And so I'll show the timing. A couple angles here. Coming together, chin drops. And coming towards the body, then drops down.
Coming up, arms and head just angle. And time where the
Uppermost vertebrae towards the head. And the head itself starts to come up. That's when the hands come up, flows to the body, then flowing away from the body, opening the hands and down. So females, it's the right hand grabbing the left thumb, wrapping the left fingers around. For males, it's the opposite. So Cheryl, I'm gonna now, this is a more, I call it more, I would say it's more advanced. So what we just did is the basic spinal bow. And as we mentioned before, it's an additional add-on before the set and after the set. And that's basically how we do it. You can also do it on your own separately without doing the set, because it is a spinal qigong exercise. And then you can do it not necessarily with the arms, you can just do it with the arms hanging. But the basic version is releasing from the top. Everything else remains vertical until you get there.
and then one vertebrae at a time builds on top. Everything else hangs. So one vertebrae comes up, line, everything else hangs.
So Cheryl, the alternate way is the opposite. Coming up is going to be the same. Coming up is we stack one vertebrae, then the other, then the other, then the other on top. And everything above that just hangs with gravity. That's the thing. But going down, we have the alternate option of releasing from the bottom. Totally different feeling. And it feels really quite good once we get a sense of that. It's a very different feeling, exactly the opposite approach. So we'll do it up without the arms here, so you can really focus on that. So I'm going to release from the bottom vertebrae. This releases. This releases. This releases. So this part is rounded and released. The rest is straight. Where before, top releases and the bottom is not released. Top releases, the bottom part is straight. Now, bottom releases, everything else stays straight. The next 2 or 3 vertebrae, the next 2 or 3 vertebrae, the next 2 or 3 vertebrae, the next 2 or 3 vertebrae. So the head and neck is still straight.
So the last that get released are the neck vertebrae and the atlas vertebrae. So right under the skull is the last to be released. And then you come up by stacking one on top of the other. Everything above that is still hanging completely with gravity. Completely with gravity.
So that has a very different feel. It's another really good way to work the awareness and the intention and the spine. Okay. Hang out. Hanging off the clothesline. Dripping into the ground, water disappearing into the soil. We're in the sunlight. That's opening us up. Subtle but expansive. Dripping wetness, warming sunlight. very much. See you next time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
The reverse order, it was easier to feel each vertebrae
Ah,
for me than the other way.
okay. Yeah, work with that for a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah,
Good.
yeah, yeah, thanks. Good to see you, Jackie. Oh,
Hi.
you're still muted.